Hello, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Scenes. They call me Stepney. Tonight, I am joined by Dan Ellis. Dan, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, it's great. A long day, but and I apologise for yesterday. It was a mental one, as I tried to explain.
Not a
But
problem.
it's good to have you on, Dan.
Yeah, no,
So,
thank you for having me.
Dan, we've had a little chat.
Yep.
Yes, apologies, I've interrupted you, but we've had a little chat, and I feel I know a little bit about you and a little bit about your journey. But this is the opening question for everybody. Tell the viewers who you are and a little bit or a lot about your journey to becoming Dan Ellis.
My journey to becoming Dan Ellis. Yeah, so I started off life in a way, many years ago, doing acting. I went to theatre school when I was 9 years old, and I went to one theatre school, and then I went to another theatre school, and then when I was 18 years old, I moved off to America, and I was studying at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in Los Angeles, California, Hollywood. Um, I stayed out there for my university, and I got a degree in acting and filmmaking. And I lived out there for a year, and I had an agent, and I was working. I was working as a teaching assistant at the university that I was at, and then I became a camera operator, and I filmed all of the productions that the university was doing. And then I got a job working in a theatre company in North Hollywood, and I had an agent, and I was doing some professional acting work, and it was all going rather well. And then a deadly virus called COVID-19 struck the world, and I was promptly booted from America, and had to come back and move back in with my parents when I was, which was not fun. And then I got a job working in a COVID test site, and I did that for about 9.5 months. And while I was working at the COVID test site, I met a guy who worked as a locations manager in TV and film, and it was a Polish guy called Andrew Poloski, and he said to me, I was working as a supervisor at the time at the COVID test site because I had no work, I didn't know what I was doing, so I was just working, just literally just doing anything that I could at the time, which was the only thing that was available was COVID, and he offered me a job working as a location manager on a Channel 4 TV show, and he said that he had a family emergency and he couldn't do the shoot part of it. He'd done all the prep, but he couldn't actually be there for the shoot. Um, would would I mind stepping in for him? And I was like, well, I've never done it before. And he said, you'll be fine. Trust me, you'll be okay. You've managed to do pretty well in the COVID thing. I think you'll be all right to do it in the film world. Plus, you've worked, in film, and you've done acting stuff, so you should kind of know the idea of it. Um, and I did the job. And on the job, I became friends with a line producer on the job. And quite honestly, I didn't even know he was the line producer when I met him. I just saw some random guy sat in the corner on his laptop, and I thought, hey, I'm going to go and have a conversation with that guy. And I had a conversation with him, and we got along really, really well. I then found out he was the line producer, and I was like, oh, well, it was good that I was appropriate with him. And he then pulled me aside on the last day of filming, and I'll never forget this. He like pulled me into this like dimly lit like alleyway, right? This like corridor where it was literally just the two of us, and he like leaned in close and he was like, "I've just found out you've never done this before," and I was like, "Yeah, maybe just a little bit," and he uh, he was like, "I couldn't tell," and I was like, "Great, that's amazing. I'm so glad you couldn't tell." And he said, "I've got another TV job coming up, which is the TV show Big Boys. I don't know if you've seen it. It
No.
was a Channel 4 show that came out, must have come out 2 years ago now. It had uh, what was his name? Dylan Moran, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Whatever his name is, the guy who's in Derry Girls, the curly head guy in Derry Girls. He was the main character of the show, and they offered me a location assistant job on that job. And then from then onwards, it just led into this weird career that I've now managed to formulate of working behind the scenes, and I work solely in like the locations world. And I worked so from that job, I then worked on Enolma Homes 2
Oh,
um,
great.
with Millie Bobby Brown. I did that for about a month and a half. Then I went from that job and I worked on the show You season 4.
Nice.
I worked on that for 4.5 months, and then I worked on the film Luther with Idris Elba. Um, and I did that. We did all of the thank you. We did we did all of the the prison stuff. We were working down in Dorchester Prison, which has never been filmed in before. So from a locations point of view, it was kind of like a gold mine because we had to basically redo the entirety of the prison. And I was there. I was supposed to be there for 3.5 weeks, and I was just going to be working as a location marshal. And then I got promoted pretty much after the first week to a unit assistant, and I ended up being there for about 2.5 months. And I was living with my grandparents at the time because they were down in Dorchester, so I was staying with them. I literally said to them, I'll only be here for 2 weeks," and then it was like 2.5 months later, I was still there. Um, and I did all of the prep, all of the shoot, all of the strike, and then that job then led on to. So then I was working on You and what was the other one? A film that's not out yet. That's called The Union. That will be out, I think, at the end of this year. Um, and I was actually working on You, The Union, and Luther all at the same time for like a space of like a month, which in the film world is pretty much impossible. I was literally last year was probably the busiest year I've ever had. In that I was literally going from like night shoots on one production and then like day shoots straight away on the other one. And I had probably about 8 months last year where I basically didn't have a day off. And I was just jumping from back to back projects. I then after those ones had finished, sort of towards it was about March, April last year. I sort of finished. No, later than that. So like June. Sorry. I then went on to an ITV show, and I worked on that for about 18 weeks. And then after that, I then worked as my first unit manager job on another ITV show, which is it was a vampire show. I'd love to say the name of it, but I've signed an NDA, so I can't. But it's absolutely hilarious. And then I worked as a assistant location manager on a pilot TV series for Ramesh Ranganathan. And then at the beginning of this year, I worked on a Netflix superhero film as a assistant unit studio manager in Enfield Studios. And then from that, I then worked on a Sky TV job as a assistant location manager. Um, and then I was filming down in Dartmoor on a another film, working as a unit assistant again. And now my next job is going to be working as an assistant location manager on a another show straight off that. So it's been for the last pretty much at the end since the end of 2020. I've been working pretty much non-stop. And this week has been a rarity in that I've had pretty much nearly the whole week off, even though I've got a meeting on Saturday. So yeah, that's pretty much from then to now, of me. But yeah.
Dan, wow, first of all, that you kept yourself busy. Do you find time to breathe? I mean,
Um, I don't really have a social life. I don't have a lot of time to do anything. I have some creative friends that is a guy called Kobe. I'll send you his Instagram soon. He does it. He has his own photography thing, and he has his own like website and his own merchandise and all that kind of stuff. And we started collaborating on some videos together and stuff like that. And we actually met on my very first ITV job. We met on that job. He was the medic on that job, and he showed me that he had this photography page. And me and him go away and we do some stuff, and we actually at the end of January, when I finished doing my Netflix superhero thing, literally the day after I finished on that job, I went to Spain for a couple of days, and we just had a little holiday, just a couple nights away. A couple mates of ours, we had a great old time there, and we're doing the same thing again when my June job finishes. Just right at the very end, we're going away to Italy to go to stay in this mansion for like a week and a half, and with some wannabe models that he's going to be photographing, and I'll be very drunk in the background, hanging out in the jacuzzi. Um, but that's pretty much the extent of my life outside of work these days. It's just even when I'm not working, I'm still sort of doing some more
Work.
creative stuff. But yeah.
You know what? It's always funny to hear these like this side of the story from people because the majority of their time, whether it's working or not working, is working. And it seems like you just going from one job to another job to another job to another job, and in between your not working days, this is kind of work, I guess. I guess.
Yeah.
Then Saturday is the King's coronation, and you've got the you've got a meeting with somebody that I've interviewed as well, but you're still working. So I'll say that all work and no play makes Dan.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one.
um, what
I
what
sort of struggle if I'm not doing something. I struggle.
that's funny because a lot of people say the same thing, and it's just they get itchy fingers, I guess, itchy feet, itchy pants, and it's always that first to go, all right, right, I should be doing something, I should be doing something, and you've just always just done something. It seems like and I suppose you've got good experience now from being in America as well and working over there. What would you say some of the main differences between working over in America to working in the UK are?
Oh, I would say okay. So one of the biggest things that I found in America is that when people are working out in America and stuff like that, they they have their one job, right? So they'll if you're a lighting guy, you're a lighting guy. If you're a sound guy, you're a sound guy. There's not a lot of like jumping about. Whereas here, like I've especially within the locations world, there's a lot of people who I know who work in locations that do other stuff. So they'll do like video creating, or they'll like work with the props department or stuff like that. They'll jump around. Whereas in America, I found that people tend to like very fixate on like if like, this is my job, this is what I do, kind of thing. Whereas here, like for me, example, I work either in the locations world or I do like unit stuff, or like I was working when I was doing Lord of the Rings. I was working. Oh, I forgot I did Lord of the Rings. Um, that's a weird one to forget. Yeah, like I jumped around. Like I worked with the props guys at one point. Like I did like do you just sort of jump around. You do lots of different things. Whereas, like I said, in America is much more like you do your one job. That's it. Like that's I'm a lighting guy. I'm a lighting guy. That's it.
Which do you prefer?
Um, I really like being a unit manager. Um, there's this thing in the locations world where it's like a a location manager deals with people. Like that's like their main thing is they'll hire all of the people and they'll put them into positions, and then they have to communicate with every department and the heads of every department to make sure that everything is like set up for them. Whereas a unit manager much more like deals with like things, like they'll deal with the generators, they'll deal with the water bowsers, they'll deal with the making sure that the catering setup is done correctly, they'll make sure that every all of the trailers are hooked up with power and in the right places, and making sure that the tower lights are all right. They're much more like practical things that you got to deal with. The only problem is that you don't really have any time off, because you'll be on the weekend and you'll get a phone call from a security guy at 2 o'clock in the morning being like, what's the code for the gate? And you're the only person that knows the information for that. And that's like the only part of the job that's like really annoying, is that you're never really off the clock. The earliest that I ever had a phone call, I think, was about like 3:30 in the morning, where I had a security guy call me up on, I think it was a Sunday. He called me up and he was like, "What's?" He's like, "How do I open the gate?" And I was like, "You need the key for the padlock." And he's like, "Who's got the key?" And I'm like, "The day security would have given it to you when he left." And he went, "Oh, that's what that was for." And then he hung up the phone. And I just sort of sat there like on my phone, just like, "You woke me up for this." like, like you woke me up for like the most common sense thing. But but apart from dealing with really dumb people sometimes, it's a much more enjoyable part of the job, like driving around, especially when you're working on like really complex locations and stuff. Like if you're filming in Hackney Common, or if you're filming down in Dartmoor, if you're filming in Black Park, which is the forest that's right behind Pinewood Studios. Like you got to drive around in a pickup, you got to be towing stuff, you got to be out in the mud, in the rain, in every single kind of weather and stuff like that. Like that's a really fun part of the job, where you're basically a hillbilly for like a whole week. Like,
Do you change your name to like Billy Bob or something like that?
no, but it's funny you should say that. You get when you're working behind the scenes, especially if you're like doing like practical stuff. If you get it, if you're lucky enough to have a nickname on set, you're doing well. When I was working on Luther, they called me the Fire Platypus. That was the nickname on that one. I've had a lot of them where they call me like Viking Dan, like, because obviously the beard. And that was the reason why they called me Fire Platypus, because I had the ginger. Um, and then one of the ones that I unintentionally gave this really bad nickname of mine was that I made a joke with someone when they introduced me to someone else. They said, "Hi, this is Dan Ellis," and I went, "Oh, it's actually Smellis." And then that was it. From then on, they just called me Smellis. They would write it on my coffee cups. They would send texts. They would say it on the radio. Like that was it. I was just Smellis from then on. Like it was a stupid nickname that I should never have told a location. I just told one location marshal that one joke, and then that was it. From then on, that was I was just Smellis, and I had to make sure that I had to make sure I was wearing like cologne and like making sure that I smelled good. Um, but no, I became Smellis on that job.
Okay, Smiths. That's how I'm going
Bastard.
to refer to you all the time now. You're no longer Dan.
Yeah, I should just change it on the screen here.
Yeah, just change the Smiths. It's fine.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's like I said, for me, it's always interesting, and it's funny to hear you talk about the different aspects of being a unit manager to being a location manager, and being more of a rugged sort of outdoors guy, getting wet, getting calls at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the morning to say, "Where's the key? You've got the key." That sort of thing is just it's just these are the things that people don't hear. They don't know that happens. And when they see a put together film or TV production or something, all they see is the finished article. You're giving us the exact behind the scenes things that people just don't know. So these are the things that happen. So when next time they're watching a Luther the movie or something like that, they'll go, Yeah, I bet Dan was. Sorry, I bet Smellis was somewhere there doing something in the background. Is that his shoe in the? Is that
Yeah,
his
you know,
shoe that's been caught up?
it's funny actually. There's something that's so like behind, like really, if anything, behind the scenes. Um, when they did Luther, right? So they were filming down in Dorchester Prison, and Dorchester Prison hasn't been open since 2013. So it was the whole building was basically just like falling apart. We had to have cleaners come. We had to do like 2.5 months of prep like before even I came in to the job. They had like complete they'd taken like diggers and like all of these like heavy equipment into the prison, and they'd like dug up the entirety of the ground of the prison and resurfaced it, so that they could like lay down. Because if you watch the film, um, if you notice in the prison, all of the ground is like red. All of the grounds are red, and it's like supposed to be a part of the film. Like it's a whole part of the film. But in the original part ground of the prison, it was all just like concrete. You know, so they dug it all up, redid the concrete, and then like all of the everything, and then just put down this red flooring, and they had this huge mound of like stones and rubble and like ground up concrete that was out the back of the prison, that had just been dumped there from the diggers, right? And myself and a couple of the location people, we we used spades and we dug out this big mound of gravel, right? And we put it, or we dug it out and put it on this trailer that got taken by a pickup down to the unit base, which is where they had all of the, which is where they've got all of the, which is like a field that was like a mile away, where they had all of the trailers, they had all of the makeup, all of the everything, stuff like that. And the road was completely like had so many potholes in it. So what we did is we took all of the gravel from the prison and we ground it all up with these spades, and we filled in the potholes on
Nice.
this road so that when cars were coming in and things like that, it wasn't destroying tires and stuff like that. So like we remade the road kind of thing from the grounds of the prison that was literally like a mile away, and and the farmers that were giving us the land were so happy that we'd done that because we'd resurfaced this road that they'd been going down on tractors every day and just churning it up and destroying it, and we just made them a new road.
Add it to the list of things you can do. So next
Oh
time,
yeah, oh, yeah.
just phone up your
No,
local councils and just say, "Yep, I can do pothole filling for you." You
yep,
know,
yep, yep. That is not the
100%.
first time I've done that, by the way. It's not the first time I've done anything like pothole related on a job. We were filming out I was on a Sky job a couple of weeks, about 2 months ago, and in the middle of this forest is this like one road, and we got in a company to come and do the potholes for it, and it took them 2 days to do the potholes for that, and I literally had to walk with them and like help them do it. Um, and the worst part was is that they do it with limestone, right? And this is really boring stuff, by the way, but this is like my life. Like, they did it with like these limestone, and they fill in these potholes, right? And it had rained like the night before, and when you're filling in potholes with limestone, is you're supposed to do it when it's dry because it sets pretty quickly. You put it in, you compact it, and it makes it nice and solid. But when you fill it in and there's water there, it basically just becomes like hot pop, like hot chocolate powder. It just sort of like mushes up and just becomes like a liquid. Um, and we were doing it, and we just had to redo it over and over and over again. And I even said to them at the end of the first day, I said, you guys are going to have to come back tomorrow to come and redo this. And they were like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "I'll definitely give you another day to like and pay you a full extra day just to come and do this, because it was mush by the end of it, and we had the worst weather on that job. Halfway through the job, it was supposed to be set like in summer, right? The job, right? Um, and the first 2 days of the week, we had perfect blue skies, like fantastic weather, and then it snowed on the third day, and literally the entirety of the forest was just winter wonderland, and it made no sense There was no continuity. It's the only job that I've ever done where they had two weather stand down days back to back, and they cancelled the second unit on the second day, just because the weather, it was just made no sense, which for us is really annoying from the location's point of view, because it means that everything that we've done, everything that we're doing, and everything that's about to happen is completely null and void. And just like you'll be going along and you'll be setting up the next location, being like, all of this is going to get cut in the editing room. Nothing that we're doing right now is going to be done, but they've just spent so much money on it that they have to film. They have
Yep.
to do something.
Yep.
So they were filming this. They were filming this scene, and we were setting it up, and we were driving around, and we had vans getting stuck in the mud, and we had pickup trucks getting stuck in the mud, and we had all of this stuff, like, just complete, like, the whole ground. And by the way, it was all National Trust protected land as
Ah.
well. Like, and we I remember I was in a meeting with the National Trust people like a week before, being like, "Oh yeah, we'll keep it all safe. We'll keep it all fine. We'll tape off areas. We'll make sure that no one. We'll make sure that no one drives on the verges or anything like that." And it was like that third day, and we saw it start to snow. We were just like, everything is going to be ruined. And I was there on set with a lovely lady called Christy, who knew more about trees than any person alive, who would just stand there watching this snow come down, watching pickup trucks getting stuck in the mud and just churning up the mud, and we were just going, "We're not going to get asked back." Like, which is a shame, because it's like, we did everything we could, but the snow just made it absolutely, just ruined everything, and it gives us a bad name, even though there's nothing that we can do about it. But it just means that if I ever am working on a production again and they want to, use that part of the forest, I might have to get an assistant to go and have a meeting with them, because if they see my face, they're going to be like, "Not that guy."
Not Smellis.
Not Smellis. Not Smell. And I was Smellis on that job. That was the job I was.
You know what? That's the other thing that people don't seem to realize is the weather plays a huge part, because usually when I've been on set, is you get the call sheet for the day, for example, and it will say the sun's due up at this time, sun sets at this time, would due rain about this time, or would due snow about this time. And it is crazy, because if you're shooting a scene that's supposed to be in summer, for example, and it's the middle of winter, you've got to go to everybody, look hot, look warm, and you're like, yes, this is so warm. And when it's hot, and they say it's winter, because my son did one. He did Ted Lasso. I'm just going to put it out there. He did Ted Lasso.
Well, nice.
But it's one of the hottest days last year, and they said, "Yeah, we need you in a big jacket." So him and the other kids were in big jackets out in the playground playing football, I guess, or running around or whatever. And when I picked him up, he was like, "Oh, you know what? That was like the hottest day ever." And he unfortunately dropped his water bottle, and that broke. But one of the crew had like a spare water bottle, and just like, "Look, there you go. Look, have that one." And you just go, "Yeah, thank you," because I don't know how he would have survived. But people don't see that sort of side of things. They don't know. They just think, "Oh yeah, you go, you shoot, you film." The rain is on purpose, although you can get rain machines, and the sun is on purpose, and yes, you do get big lighting for that, and the snow is on purpose. And it's either like, what do we do? Do we see what it's going to be like in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then try again, or is it a write off? And then the weather guy will check and just go, "Yeah, it's a write off." It's not something that we can continue with.
Yeah, no, that was literally what happened on that job. Is that it started snowing on at the end of the second day, and we were like, "Oh, this is not going to go well." And then on the third day, we came in, and they literally, all of the producers were stood there with the director and the DOP, and they were all just stood around in a circle, and they just went, "Should we wait until lunch to see if it melts?" And we were like, "It's not going to melt. It's still snowing now." And you sort of stood there going, "We can try." So then we waited until lunch, and then inevitably it was still winter wonderland, because it was, and then we had the mud problem, and then every vehicles is getting stuck and things like that. And it was funny what you just said about Ted Lasso. when you said last year, I was at the same studio that they were filming Ted Lasso on last year. So it might have been if they were filming if they were filming it was around that time. It was literally the hottest days of last year. We were filming one day in a studio, and Ted Lasso, I can't remember the name of the actor. He walked out, and he walked straight past me, and I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" He's like, "Hey, guys, how's it going, guys?" And I had like a little conversation with him, and then walked away. And I just sort of I turned to the medic next to me, and I was like, that's Ted Lasso, right? And he was like, he's like, "Oh, is that good?" But no, it's funny. Like we were filming literally right next door to each other. Um, so I don't know if it might have been the same. It might have been I might have been there at the same time as your son was. Um,
Yeah.
but
You know what? It's funny because we do that all the time, and we do go, oh yeah, it's the guy from Ted Lasso. It's Ted Lasso. What's his name? No idea.
no, no
No
idea.
idea.
No,
No
no
idea.
idea. It's just that guy actor. It's that
Yeah,
guy or that girl actor. It's like it's one of them. You know what I mean?
there's a few people like that, and it's not a bad career to have actually. Just being that guy or that girl, because you'll be in everything, and everybody will know who you are,
Yeah.
but nobody will know who you are. They'll just go, oh yeah, it's that guy from such and such, and oh yeah, I remember that guy.
I've just had a notification on my phone on my laptop saying that I've got 10% left, which means that
Ooh.
unfortunately I'm going to reveal that I am wearing sweatpants and that I'm not wearing. I thought I'd be classy and wear a shirt, and unfortunately I'm not. I think I might have gotten away with it, but I'm just going to quickly put my laptop back on charge.
You
Uh,
know what? My usual attire at home is I like wearing my dressing gown. I love a dressing gown, and where I
love a
live
dressing
is
gown.
oh mate, they're so comfortable. They're so
We
great.
should both be
And
wearing dressing gowns for this. I
we
don't know
should.
why I bothered to put a shirt on.
I've been umming and ahhing about it for ages, just going. I should just be wearing a dressing gown because that's
Yeah,
where I'm most comfortable. And with me and my friend, with me and some of my neighbours, even when we play badminton in the courtyard and stuff like that, or watch a movie in the courtyard or something, or just having drinks in the courtyard or whatever. It's dressing gown. It's a dressing gown. Whether of course it's dressing gown.
yeah,
Whether you come out, you get your drink on, you get your badminton racket on, and you got your
yeah,
dressing gown on, and everybody's like, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's I might have to start doing it. I'm just going to have to start wearing a dressing gown from now on and just be the
yeah.
dressing gown guy. And people just going to be like, well, that's a bit weird. And I'm going to say, yeah, but I'm comfortable in it. So,
I mean, it's comfy, it's loungewear. No, I mean it's again. I put on a shirt just for this. It'll be straight off once this is finished.
um, what do you think of the industry as a whole? What do you, in terms of like your experiences so far, what do you think about it? Is it a good experience? Well, I mean, yes, because you've been working nonstop, but I mean, is it a good industry? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think the industry has. It's funny. I think the industry has changed a bit. I think that, but for the good, for the better. I think. Like there's a lot more like the conversations that I've had with people who, like working with riggers and stuff like that, who are like, building the scaffolding stuff for studios and stuff like that. Like having conversations with those guys who've been like working in the job for like, nearly like 40 years, they've said how much it's changed recently and stuff like that. And there's been so much more like positive change and stuff like that. And, COVID was a huge change to the industry. I mean, like I came into it off the back of COVID, and it's only just now that people have started to not wear masks on set. Like it really is like within the last like few months that we've sort of gone off the COVID stuff. I mean, you still got to test and things like that, but
Mm.
I mean, when I first came onto it, we were having to test like 3 times a week. You had to wear masks. Certain people couldn't be. You couldn't have the same amount of people in the same room and stuff like that. If you were working with actors and things like that, you had to make sure that you had to maintain social distancing with actors and stuff like that, which is so strange, especially in like the TV world, because like in TV world, it's so much more intimate because it tends to be like lower budget stuff, like with the Channel 4 and the ITV stuff. Like I became really good friends with like the star of one of the ITV jobs that I did, just because Dylan Llewellyn is the actor. Really, really nice guy. We got along really well when we did an ITV job together. Um, and yeah, I'm like having to like I'm having to make sure that I'm not staying too close to the actor, because if the actor gets COVID, we're all done. That's it. That's a COVID shutdown, like, which I've been a part of before. We had a COVID shutdown on an ITV job once where it was literally just, you know, one of the actors got COVID, so everybody had to go home. Simple as that. Just we basically had a paid week off. It was great, but it was that, and I think that that was like the biggest like change, like physical change to the industry that I experienced.
Yeah.
And now it's going back into like normality. Now it's all right. But one of the other biggest things that I've definitely noticed is that like it's a there's a lot of like anti-bullying stuff going on in the industry at the
Yeah.
moment. Like a lot with discrimination and all that kind of stuff, where you'll be on jobs and things like that, and they'll send you they'll send you some video that you got to watch about anti-bullying or discrimination kind of thing, and you got to take the test at the end, and then you got to do all of this kind of stuff. And like speaking to people that I've known again who've like worked in the industry for like 40 years, like that's only happened within the last like 10 years or so that they've started doing stuff like that, because back in the day, you know, it was a lot more discriminatory, and there was a lot more bullying going on and stuff like that, and you had a lot more of like high star actors treating ads like shit, and you had a lot of all that kind of stuff. But it's really changed now. Like you can't treat people like shit when you're working on film jobs. You just can't, because there's so many things in place now that make sure that you have to be nice. You have to be a nice person to work on the film sales, otherwise you won't work. It's as simple as that. I've worked on jobs where people have been fired within like 2 weeks of the job starting because they're a prick, and no one wants to work with them, and they just get
Yeah.
fired like that. It's so easy for them to just they say the wrong thing, they do the wrong thing, they act the wrong way, and they'll be gone. It is as simple as that. um and I think it would have been the case like 20 years ago that you had to be a dick to get ahead kind of thing, whereas now I think it's much more of the you have to be nice, you have to be genuine, you have to be a normal person, and not like up yourself, and like and just a prick to be able to get work. And I've been very fortunate. I'll put my hands up. I've been very fortunate in this industry to have known the right people, and to have been in the right crowds, and to work constantly with people that that now just send me work all the time, because quite frankly it's just so much easier just to be nice to people. Like this industry is entirely who you know rather than what you know. If you're a nice guy and you're new to the job, like we say that they're green, that they've never done it before. If you're a nice guy, it doesn't matter. You still get work because they just want to work with the person. Whereas if you're a dick, it doesn't matter how much experience you've got. People won't work with you these days. That's that for me is like the biggest thing that I've noticed within working in the industry now, is that, and I think it's such a positive thing that that it's moved in a good direction, of no more having famous actors throwing water bottles at people and stuff like that for for getting their coffee wrong or something like that. You know what I mean? Like that's going away now, and it's a really nice thing to be a part of. That is, I've worked on jobs where I've literally just hung out with my mates all day, and we're making a movie, and it makes life so much nicer. You know.
You see, that's the thing is there was again I was explaining to a friend of mine. I said there's always a fine line between um, something that's humor and something that's just overstepping your mark. And I don't know if you've. I used to play basketball when I was younger, so I watched The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan and Chicago Bulls thing on Netflix.
Oh, I
And
started watching that. I didn't finish it.
oh, you know what? It's I said I was a basketball at that time. I was playing basketball, with with a club, the London Leopards and stuff like that. And I remember that season so well.
mm,
And people were like, "Oh, Michael Jordan's he's a horrible person." I went, the thing is, it's different. I said different industries and different people have different personalities, and it's sometimes for somebody like me is I more try and get the personality and who the person is. So I said Jordan comes across as a horrible person. He's just somebody that really wants to win,
mm,
and he wants to know that the person next to him is given the exact same energies and effort to win because he
mm,
wants to win, and that's the mentality. I said, but um, it, as you said, like in the past 20 years, that shift to look, you don't have to be a dick to win. You can be a nice guy and win,
mm,
and that's been the shift. Is lots of the NBA stars now. Look at Tim Duncan when he was winning with the San Antonio, for example, and look at someone like Steph Curry at the Warriors and Giannis as well at Minnesota. These guys are just being they're just being guys. They're just being nice people, as you said. They're just getting on with the work and they're doing these things to because they're nice people. I said, but that's the thing. You still in that you still get some people that are just unfortunately they're absolute assholes, and you've got to sometimes go right. Is this the right person? Is this person the right fit? But of course they're not.
mm,
They might be brilliant, but they're not the right fit. And when you get a whole cast and crew together and everybody just seems to just get on and vibe and enjoy themselves, and you've got somebody that's just been a right arsehole, as I said, just stirring the pot and
mm,
not actually contributing much, because you can get somebody else that can contribute
mm,
and actually be a part of the team.
mm,
It makes all the difference.
mm.
But at the same time, like I said, I'm a clumsy fool, so I like to just have fun and stuff like that. That's probably why I didn't get that far, to be honest. um, my humor is my humor is a bit different. That's a good way to describe it. I've got different humor.
Different humor. Okay, all right, Taylor.
Um, you know what? Just to give you an example, like for example, I love South Park. I grew up watching South Park. We all
Oh, I
watched
love
the same.
South Park.
But I was explaining it to Kid One, who's my daughter. I call her Kid One, and I always said to her, the thing is with South Park, if you're easily offended, this
Don't watch
will
it.
just don't. And I said it's pointless watching it, then getting offended after somebody's told you it's going to be like this. I
Yeah,
said what they did well is they just said everything is fair game. And because
yeah.
everything is fair game, it's not for you to take offense to it. It's just for you to laugh at it, because that's all they're saying to you to do. It's just laugh. And
My
I always
my favorite thing that of the new South Park thing is the Harry and Meghan sketch. I
I haven't
so,
seen it yet.
oh, it was so funny. It's just them making, and they go on their they call it their world privacy tour, and they're like it's so good. It was so well written. It's so funny. They do it as if they're the like the prince and the princess of Canada. And obviously, and they don't use the real names, but it's so obviously them, and it's just so good. It's so funny.
You see, and that's the thing is, even if they use the real names, whatever, it's just funny.
Yeah,
That's all it is. Like I said, every episode is funny because some like again, I explain things to Kid One and Kid Two, and Kid One gets it more because she's a bit older. And I said to her, the thing is, I could watch it and then I could be offended, but that's that's a me problem because
yeah.
I'm there watching it, knowing what it's about, and then being offended by it and saying, "Oh, this is bad." I said, but to give you to give you an example, I said, there's a black kid in it, and she went, "Yeah, what's his name?" I went, "Token." She went, "What Token? What?" I went, "His name's Token Black." She went, "Token Black." I went, "Yeah," and she went, "Ah." I said,
Oh, he's the
"It's
token black guy.
is it token?" And she get it. And she got it. I said, if anybody was to be offended by it, I said it would be Kyle and Kyle's family because they're Jewish, and um, that's the butt of pretty much Eric Cartman's jokes every single week. But then obviously then you got Eric Cartman himself, and I said, but it's not anything at anyone. anything and anyone is fair game, and it's, like I said,
Yeah,
don't
everything. Yeah.
everything is fair game. And then I told her about the chef episode as well, and when he left, and I said the
Oh
thing is
yeah,
with chef. Yeah, I said the thing is with Chef, he was happy to take part in every other episode, and as soon as it came about the Scientology thing, um,
Scientology.
yeah, is that was a good episode. But he said he couldn't do it, and me personally, I was there going, what do you mean that you've done everybody else? And that's the, but like I said, they each to their own, each to their beliefs and everything else. But I said, as I explained to Kid One, um, it's not about how you are offended by something. It's about what the intentions are. The intentions of South
Yeah,
Park is just to make people laugh and actually to raise awareness about certain things as well. Just to say, what, like, these things are actually happening, and this is how people are feeling, and stuff like that. So it's a lot more deeper than what it actually portrays sometimes.
yeah,
But at the same time, you've got to laugh at it because it's just funny. If you don't laugh, it'll kill you. So
yeah.
it's just it. It's just it. A good one to say is, what do you think the industry needs to improve? I mean, you talked about the improvements that we've seen over the past 20 years, but what do you feel the industry needs to improve?
Oh, it's you know what? It's actually painfully obvious. It's diversity behind the camera. Like it is literally as simple as that. And we talk about this on film sets all the time. Is that in front of the camera with the acting side, there's been a huge shift within the last 5 years of like really encouraging diversity, and it's like it's come so late. It's like it has come so late that like everything that's happening right now in front of the camera should have happened like 10, 15 years ago. Like like it's insane like how late this diversity thing is now, right? But the biggest thing is behind the camera is exactly the same as it was 100 years ago. Like I to like I can probably safely say of all of the people that I know who work within the locations world, I could probably count on one hand the amount of people who are like minorities or like of different like colors, race, genders, whatever. Like it is token white guys behind the cameras, and it has been for ages. And it's like I worked on the Sky job that I was doing. There was a guy called Malik who was a location assistant, probably like one of the best fucking location assistants that I've ever worked with, right? And I can probably say that he's the first black guy who I've worked with in locations pretty much the entirety of the time that I've worked on it that has been at that level. It's I don't really know how to fix it. It's not really an easy fix, but it is painfully obvious. Like all of the riggers that you'll see on film sets, they're all like 18 to 55-year-old white guys. Most of like the really practical sides and things like that, they'll always be. And it's a shame because it's like the Netflix job that I did at the beginning of the year, the only time where I've ever seen like a director, DOP, like sound guy doing all of the behind the scenes that have all been like black guys was on a superhero film where all of the main cast were all black guys. And it was so specific for that one film where you were like it's a TV series that's coming out, and it's like all of the cast are basically black, like all of them, right? But it's like, and you had the director, all of that kind of stuff like that. But then anything else that isn't that focused, isn't like minority focused, straight away is 100% all exactly the same. And it's like, again, there is no like really easy fix to that, but it is something that like it has to change because it's like it's 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 exactly the same as it was 50, 60, 100 years ago. Like, and it's and and all the people that are at the top, all the people that are the main producers and all of the they're all exactly the same as they were for the last like 25 years. And yes, there's like a slow shift, but it's such a glaringly obvious thing. Like I've literally been on sets where I'll be stood there and I'll be looking around and I'll be like, yep, everyone's the same.
Yeah.
Like everyone is exactly how picture a film set, picture a film crew. You are exactly right in your assumption. Like they're all exactly the fucking same, and it's a shame. It's like it's a big shame. But again, like there is no easy fix for it. And I don't. I have no solution of how it can be fixed. But it is a glaringly obvious thing, and don't even think that it's not talked about. Like it is 100%. Any film that job that I've done, it has always been talked about. Is like there's so many white guys here. Like it's as simple as that. There is so many white guys here right now, and you're like, yeah, I don't know what to do about that, but yeah, yeah. In fact, probably the most diverse department is probably the makeup department. That's probably the most. That is. I don't know I don't know why. Maybe it's a bit more of an artistic thing. I don't know, but it is much more diverse than any other department that I've been a part from, other than actors themselves. Um, but I don't know. It is such a glaringly obvious problem that needs to be done. But again, I think the other part of that is that you have people that are doing this that have been in the same department for the last 50 years, and it's exactly the same as it was before. It's just the same, and it's just the same people making the same stuff over and over and over and over again. Like I'm no better. Like like I'm no better. I've been stuck in this department, and I've had a lot of work, and I would like to think that it has nothing to do with my pasty white face. But it is just something, you know.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's. I've talked. You mentioned it earlier, and there's there's a certain comfort that comes with working with people that you've worked with before. That part is first and foremost, and you wouldn't want to change that because then you're constantly going into different things with different people all the time who you're not so confident or comfortable with or not sure of their ability. So you look at Tarantino, for example. He always uses the same sort of people for his films because he's worked with them. He knows what they're about. He knows what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. So when he's doing these films, he's always got a Johnny Depp. He's always got a Samuel L. Jackson. He's always got this person. He uses the same group of people the majority of the time. When it comes to the behind the scenes stuff, again, it it works. Like I said, I get it because it works. It just works better. I don't know why. Well, we do know why. It works better when you've got the same people doing the same things that you've done with a hundred times because they know how you work and you know how they work, and they know that if you're a director and you're going, look, I want this, and you're the unit manager and you're going, okay, well, I'll get this, and that
Mm,
that connection, that vibe is, how each other works. It's not something that can just be broken and re-put together every now and again. It's just the way it is. I think the difficulty with jobs like the jobs behind the scenes, especially in the film industry, is, as you said, lots of people have been doing it for 30, 40, 50 years, and rightly so. I'm not knocking it because I do the same as well. They get their
mm,
kids involved and their kids do it for 30,
mm,
40, 50, 60 years, and it becomes a family thing. And as you mentioned earlier, it's not, sometimes with this industry, it's not about how good you are or what anything else. It's just about who you know. And
mm,
that is something that is um, something to be applauded in many ways, because you want your people around you to rise up and get opportunities and stuff like that as well. And if you can get your son, your cousin, your nephew, your aunt, your niece, or your sister a job on a set to help them as they're in between jobs or something, and they get into it and like it as well, then there's lots of benefits to it. I think there is
mm,
no easy way to change it, and I think one of the things that I've always said is there just needs to be, I think, more. more in terms of more in terms of crews and stuff like that. In We're behind America in terms of production levels and what we're actually producing and putting out there, which is why
Mm.
some of our stuff is so close knit. If we were producing more and putting out more instead of just importing lots of American TV shows, superhero shows, and stuff like that, if we were doing a lot more of our own and commissioning them on your like BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, as well as some of the other networks and stuff like that, if we were doing more of that, then we'd
Mm.
see more diversity because there'd be more opportunities for people. But it's a difficult one because, as I said,
Yeah, I
over
mean,
in America
it's
they
just
have
so
pilot
cheap
week.
to film stuff here. That's the only thing.
Mm,
Yeah, I mean, it's just I mean, the reason why we're doing so much bloody American stuff here is just because it's so cheap to make stuff here. That's why. I mean, they do so much Marvel and you know, Embrace Studios, which is not that far away from where I'm at the moment. Actually, they've got a 7 year contract just for Lord of the Rings stuff, and they it just because it's just it is so much cheaper to film stuff here than it is in America. Like it is almost chalk and cheese on that front. And it does mean that we do have to churn out a lot of American shit here. But it's just because there's just so much of their stuff that they bring over. It makes us a lot more profitable here, but yeah, it doesn't mean we churn out a bunch of shit.
yeah, like I said, is I've spoken to a number of people now, and if we were to adopt that American approach of going, you know what, we'll have our own pilot week, we'll do
Mm,
that, and then that way, like I said, there's more opportunities for people because even when I see people and like TV shows and things on like Channel 4, BBC Two and stuff, you go, oh, this is
mhm,
quite new, this is quite different. Um, it's there's not the same amount that is being put out there from these new artists and everything else, and the people behind the scenes are the same old people behind the scenes because they're the same old people behind the scenes, but
mhm,
um, they whereas before, especially when Channel 4 was in its infancy, they used to get a lot more shows that were just a bit more rough and just let's put something together. Can we put this together?
mm,
It's going to work, and it's just worked and stuff like that. Um, we need to take more risks, and I think a pilot week over here would be the perfect example of that because it then means that lots of production companies then have to put out work, and
mhm,
then they have to get enough people in that are not your regulars from other places that are usually used to try and get more people in to do the work that they need to put out their
mhm,
pilot. And then hopefully when that gets commissioned, you get those people and others in. Um, and you as a production company then gets to be a bit more diverse in terms of like race, gender,
mm.
height, because there's us. I'm 6'1", and I find it's a short person's industry. Um, but we get a better mix, and I think you produce better quality that way as
Mm.
well. So
It's funny you
yeah.
should say. It's funny you should say that because at the end of last year, I went from one ITV job literally back to back. I was a location assistant on one, and then I was a unit manager on the other, and I was sharing a unit base with another ITV job that was going on around the corner, and I found out that they were literally doing. It's funny you said about Pilot Week is that they were literally doing. It was I think it was like 6 or 7 ITV pilot series but all filmed at the same time. And I was lucky enough to do 2 of them. I wish I could tell you the name of the second one. It was so funny. But I literally went from one to the next, and then realised that there were other ones going on all at the same time. And then I spoke to a producer that was working on the ITV job I was doing at the moment, and he literally was like, yeah, there's like 4 more going on around here, and then there's like 3 others over there. And I was like, how many are they doing right now? And he said, there's literally like 7 going on all at the same time. They're just filming like a mass array of different diversity things of just like literally all over the country. They were doing all of this stuff, and it was funny because they don't normally do. They don't normally have one studio that does like one thing like spread out across the board all at the same time. But they were doing it at the end of last year. So it might be slightly moving towards that way, to doing some more pilot stuff all at the same time. So it might end up we might end up having a pilot week of some form or another coming over to the UK.
Yeah, it's. I think, like I said, I think it's the best way, and it's a good way to. It's a good way for companies like ITV and BBC to try different things that people might not, stuff that might not have been commissioned before. Because, for example, when crime stuff is selling, so everything is crime and cop based and stuff like that. When it's comedies that are selling, and everything is comedy based and stuff like that. When there's stuff that might not get commissioned, but they've got a pilot out, and if they get good reaction from it, then they're able to go forward with it.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of positives, but what do I know? I know. Like I said, it's always been something that I've thought about that could happen over here, but well, what do I know? I was going to ask you because I know what I was going to ask you earlier, but I just totally forgot about it. But I just remembered, what were your parents doing before you come on?
Oh, so yeah, no, yeah, I did tell you to ask me this. Um, my parents had literally just come back. Just I'm staying with my parents for a few months at the moment. While I'm juggling up jobs. I was living in an apartment in Reading for all of last year, but I literally just moved back in with them for a few months. I They earlier today, my mum rescued a hedgehog that had been attacked by some of the neighbouring cats, and they went on an hour drive to a hedgehog uh, like a sanctuary, right, where they rescue abandoned hedgehogs and abused hedgehogs and stuff like that. And they literally just got back, so they drove an hour there and an hour back. And I was originally going to go with them, but then I realized it was like 7 o'clock, and I was like, I can't because I won't make it back for this. But they literally just got back just before this. So my parents saved a hedgehog today.
Did they
So
name it
that's what they did today. Huh? What did you say?
Did they name it Sonic?
No, they named it Lucky
Okay, well, yeah, okay, that makes sense because
because
I
they were
guess it
lucky to
was.
find it. So yeah, yeah.
I'm going to ask you this one, and it's always an interesting one. Um, who would you like to interview if there was somebody that you could interview? It doesn't have to be in the industry; it could be anybody. Who would you like to interview, and what
um.
question would you ask them?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, I've thrown it in there. Go on.
I uh, I okay. So I would really love to meet Mark Hamill. Um, I was a big fan of Star Wars, and I'm a really big fan of like DC Comics. And I grew up watching the animated show where Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy voiced Batman and the Joker. And whenever I read the comics, I always think of Mark Hamill's voice as the Joker. And I'd always love to meet Mark Hamill. I'd always love to like talk to Mark Hamill. I'd love to have like an even with him, like and stuff like that. Um, and I'd love to do like a voice acting coaching session with Mark Hamill. I think that would be like a dream of mine, to be able to like to do lines from like comic books and stuff like that, where like we're toing and froing, where like I'll be reading one character and he'd be reading the Joker, or like he'd be giving me tips on like how to do the Joker voice or something like that. I think that would be like my absolute dream of meeting like a childhood hero kind of thing.
You know what? I follow Mark Hamill on Instagram, and he was there was something that he posted, I think last week or maybe the week before, and he was teaching another actor to how to be a Jedi.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, because of the game that's coming out soon. The second. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I love his tweets. His Instagram. He's always posting good stuff, and he's of course look. Um, we all grew up with Star Wars. You know, well,
Yeah,
we've got the kids watching Star Wars, and you know all the things and stuff like that, so they know all about it. And my brother was a huge Star Wars fan, so
yeah.
he kind of got me into it. But yeah, Mark Hamill, if you're watching this, get in contact with Dan. He'd like to do a little reading with you.
Yeah, that'd be
He's got a
great.
couple of comics that you know these two can go and
If you could sign a couple of my Joker comics, that'd be great. I just wanted
I'll have to get him on here. Mark,
yeah.
you're coming on next show.
I always said that when I was doing acting, I always said that like Mark Hamill had like the career that I wanted as like an actor of like doing something when he was really young and being like and blowing up and doing like the head of a franchise and then immediately going to all of the voiceover stuff because he's done like he's done like so many like animated shows and things like that. But then being so iconic as like the most iconic hero of any film franchise, and then like the most iconic villain of any film franchise as well, and be able to be like the person for both of those. He mastered it.
Mr. Hamill, take a bow, son. Yeah, no, like I said, I just think like he's hilarious as well. He's absolutely hilarious as well. Especially if you follow him on Instagram, he's absolutely hilarious. And yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
a good
do.
choice and a good shout.
Thank you.
Dan, I'd like to thank you. I would like to have you back again because although we've run out of time, I still want to ask you some more stuff. So I'm gonna ask you to come back again,
I will do.
and when you've got another break to breathe, and you know you've got 2 days where you're not actually working, you can come and do a day's work with me, and we'll get the rest of the stuff I wanted to chat to you about in. But thank you very much for coming on the show, Dan Ellis,
No, thank you.
everybody.
It's been great.
Dan Ellis has done everything. That's what you should do. Smell this. You can say, "I've done it all. Done it all." Do you know what I mean?
I should never have told you that.
Don't worry, Smell. It'll be our little thing. Oh, and
All
everybody
right.
watching it. But Dan, thank you very much. Dan Ellis, they call me Stepney, behind the scenes. Take care, everybody. See you next time.